How cynical does an institution have to be before they can look at the death of an old woman as a marketing opportunity? So there's this elderly lady that lives across the street from my sister-in-law for the last decade and a half or so. Doesn't have any family that still comes around, so my sister-in-law largely takes care of her. He takes her to the pharmacy, takes her to the doctor's appointments, had her over for the holidays every year, etc. And I barely know her myself, but she was sort of family, so when she died a couple of weeks ago, my wife and I felt obligated to attend the funeral. And I should note that funerals are one of those places where I basically try to turn my atheism off. You know, I nod along with all the God talk, and I might even say amen when I'm supposed to if I think somebody's looking. This old lady was a churchgoer, so I'm fully anticipating having Jesus forced down my throat like I was the prettiest inmate at a Mexican prison, and I'm ready to take it and swallow. But I don't think anything could have prepared me for the sermon I was about to hear. Wait, I'm sorry, sermon isn't the right word. It's eulogy? No, that's not right either. Sales pitch, perhaps? I don't know. You tell me. The pastor goes on for about an hour. Some 4 minutes of it was dedicated to the woman that we were there to remember. About 2 minutes were dedicated to the fact that she was in heaven now, and the other 54 were about how we could join her there for 2,000 easy weekly payments of $19.99. Now, of course they're going to use the funeral to peddle their wares to some degree, but this motherfucker went so far as giving the address for his church. It's on the corner of such and such and so. Just swing by and I can keep you out of hell. Can you imagine that with any other institution? Imagine that you ask me to deliver the eulogy at your grandma's funeral, and about halfway through I just reminded everybody that they can make a per-episode donation to this show at patreon.com/scathingatheist and get extended versions of each episode before they're available to the general public. That's almost a prick move in the middle of this diatribe, let alone at a fucking funeral. No non-religious entity would ever even consider it. Your buddy that owns a bar wouldn't stop in the middle of the eulogy to tell everybody about karaoke Tuesdays and half-price drinks on fight night. You wouldn't let your friend that owns a lawn service stuff business cards in Granny's breast pocket with a Take One sign. You wouldn't let your realtor buddy stick an ad behind her coffin at the viewing, but religion doesn't even feel the need to ask permission for this kind of shit. It's just a given. They are going to exploit the hell out of every death they can get their greedy little hands on. But religion wasn't done fucking with me that afternoon just yet, because after we learned all about how our immortal souls were in peril for lack of giving this asshole enough money, we mingled for a bit. And on no fewer than 4 occasions, somebody felt the need to remind me in a hushed tone that even though the pastor was a proper Baptist, the cadaver of honor there was actually a Jehovah's Witness. So all that stuff the preacher said about her being in heaven was wrong. They just didn't have the heart to tell him mid-sermon. Still, they wanted to make it clear to me that I shouldn't go looking for her when I got to heaven, as she would be spending her eternity in the south wing of the afterlife. Wait, no, it gets even worse. I'm in the mingling line or whatever, and as much as I'm trying to avoid it, I end up in a circle with the pastor, who is not going to waste a moment of this chance to sell us some used Jesus. He's got a couple of fish on his hook, and they're nodding along while he explains that you just never know when death is going to sneak up and grab you from behind or from under your bed or something. He actually says at one point, you could get hit by a bus on your way home from this funeral. Now, first of all, what an incredibly fucked up thing to say to a grieving person at the graveside. What kind of morbid shit colonel would say, well, you're going to die too at a funeral? But also, why is it always a fucking bus? Why is it that the go-to example of an unexpected death is always getting hit by a bus? Is there some rash of bus-related homicide that justifies this obsession? Are buses God's smiting weapon of choice now or something like the new brimstone? Who the hell gets hit by a bus? Anyway, 90 minutes after it started, it's over, and we're getting back in the car. My wife gives me this, can you believe that shit look? And I can tell that she's somewhere like halfway between being proud of me for not going all diatribe at some point and being a little disappointed that I didn't. Because what should have been a memorial for this sweet old lady turned into an orgy of petty spiritual backbiting. What the funeral probably needed was the atheist to stand up and say, could you guys shut the fuck up about God for a minute so we can focus on the dead person? And if you think about it, this is supposed to be religion's moment to shine, right? It's the only arrow they have left in their quiver now. Science took over all the other shit that religion used to pretend that they did, but they still have the comforting the grieving thing, don't they? Isn't that the sole remaining selling point for their antiquated bullshit? Isn't it there to make death easier to deal with? And instead, all I see is religion exacerbating the problem. Adding a new layer of fear to an already terrifying prospect, dividing the mourners rather than uniting them, fanning the flames of depression rather than dampening them. It's like death isn't hard enough to deal with without also stressing about whether Grandma chose the right door at St. Monty Hall's gate. Religion is a bubble that claims it's an airbag. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize that until they crash the fucking car. If nothing else, that's what drives me as an atheist. Helping people realize that the net's not going to hold before they jump into it.